All right. Now we're going to get into Project Bluebeam, which I've mentioned a few times earlier, and why this ties together with everything that I've mentioned so far. So, Project Bluebeam is basically a conspiracy theory and is also a book which was created by Serge Monast. In it, it says that, or he says that the government is going to stage an alien invasion using advanced technology to unite people under one government and usher in a new world order underneath the Antichrist. He wrote his book and he came forth with his claims in 1994. He said that they also have meetings where they unite all world leaders of every nation and everything is happening behind closed doors, behind which they are all actually allies and they are planning to systematically mass mind control all people to usher in full and control centralized power and dominance over all. He also said, for example, that the Vatican or the United Nations, they are not who they claim to be and they oppose Christianity. Obviously, he would probably say the same things about the World Economic Forum nowadays, but we're going to get into that. After his claim, Serge Monast was jailed multiple times and he also just died shortly after he made his claims. It wasn't even 2 years, and he died of a heart attack at the age of 51. Now, obviously, we who are suspicious were like, that's coincidental, but I'll just leave it at that. I'm not necessarily here to make a lot of assertions. But I wanted to give you a rundown or a breakdown of what he said is going to happen because believe it or not, we are actually seeing a lot of what he's saying coming true. Now, Serge Monast originally gave a timeline and he said, like, I don't know, this is going to happen by 1998. And when it didn't happen, he said it was going to happen by the year 2000. And a lot of theories and quote unquote conspiracies which have come true have been around for 20 to 30, if not even longer. So that was maybe a mistake to put a time limit on his quote unquote conspiracy. But we're seeing a lot of the things he's talking about becoming a reality nowadays. And some of the things which I'm going to show you are for sure going to blow your mind or be at the very least super interesting. So here's a general breakdown of what he said is going to happen. I'm breaking down the book into four steps or four stages, and we're going to start with stage one. In stage one, the government would systematically break down traditional beliefs. They would use lies and fake archaeological discoveries, fake scientific discoveries that wouldn't necessarily say, oh, Jesus is not the Messiah or any of these things, but they would systematically discredit religious beliefs. They would cause natural disasters, hurricanes, storms, and earthquakes, which they will do themselves using advanced technology. And with this, they would instill fear within the people, make them more dependent for a savior, put them in a state of fear in general, and they would also be used to quote unquote uncover new scientific or archaeological discoveries that will once again contradict these traditional religious beliefs. So after he would contradict, or they would contradict traditional religious beliefs and systematically, quote unquote, indoctrinate people to go against scripture, they would then use advanced technology such as holograms and lasers projected into the sky to stage a fake second coming of multiple religious figures. For example, you could have Buddha, you could have the Messiah of Judaism. You could have the Mahdi in Islam, or obviously you could have Jesus, and they would show all of these religious figures, and then eventually they would unite them all within one being and bring them all together, and they would all be after that one, and then this one entity that they're all going to merge into is going to be the Antichrist. And he's going to then rule the world under the guise of religious predictions being fulfilled, but this is actually going to be a deliberate deception according to him. Another part of his theory is that on top of holograms, they would also use extremely low frequency beams to speak to people's minds so that they would hear voices and would think that they're receiving divine revelation or that they're hearing God's voice or that God is speaking to them directly. And fourth and final stage, and this is also the most interesting one, and you're for sure sitting there thinking, okay, how is this happening today? How are you drawing these ties? We're gonna get into that, but the final stage would be a gigantic, lifelike alien invasion used with advanced technology, a bunch of natural disasters, and we would then all, under this perceived threat, unite the governments under the Antichrist, who will be the fulfillment of all of our religious prophecies, and we would be united into one totalitarian government. And he would then deliver us from the quote unquote aliens, from the natural disasters, but they've all caused them themselves to begin with. And this is why he can deliver us. We would then also have a global digital ID. We would all be tracked and chipped, and we would become more or less slaves, but willful, obedient slaves. So, this is just a general rundown. And we're going to start right off with stage one. So, systematic indoctrination to go against traditional religious beliefs. Now, we see this already happening. I mean, you see a lot of people questioning the faith, questioning the Bible, questioning religion because of dinosaurs, because of evolution. And these quote unquote scientific discoveries, they pretty much prove the Bible to be wrong because you can't have a God creating the earth and then at the same time we're random biological entities that just randomly through natural selection developed over millions of years. These two things are not reconcilable with one another. And if what he's saying is true, or in other words, if the Bible is true, then these have to be fabrications. This would mean that we would actually, in fact, be systematically indoctrinated with hidden agendas from the age of 6 or 7 when we get into school to believe in dinosaurs but reject giants, to believe in evolution and reject creation, right? To believe in the Darwinian theory and not the God of the Bible. And if that were the case, that would also make one question the authority and honesty of a lot of institutions. For example, NASA, right? NASA pretty commonly questioned when it comes to the nutcases and conspiracy theorists such as I am, right? But if we are truly looking at things from a biblical perspective, then you can't have both. You need to choose one. You need to choose to either follow the Bible fully and be looked at as a nutcase and a religious conspiracy theorist, or you don't. But Jesus doesn't like fence hoppers. So if the Bible is true, we cannot believe NASA. And interestingly enough, and I'm not trying to go too deep into NASA because once again, this would be a whole chapter in of itself. The word in Hebrew means deceiver. So I'll just leave it at that, okay? Now, we already see this happening, right? We don't need to I don't need to put the stamp on this is true or this is not true, but I think you can all recognize that if the Bible were to be the truth and nothing but the truth and the full truth, then things such as dinosaurs existed 65 million years ago and we're just here because of a random result of natural selection and accidents magically and luckily aligning, then these things have to be deliberate lies here to deceive us. Or traditional religion is wrong, right? These are the two options. And so we get into his second plan, or the second stage of his plan, where he will have holographic second comings. And here I would also quickly just like to once again look back into Revelation. So we would have, and no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. That's Corinthians 11:14. Or Matthew 24:24. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. And this is very important. And how many Christians do you know that are not aware of this? Matthew tells us false Christs will come and they will perform great signs and wonders as to lead astray even the elect. So this is not talking about some nutcase up in the mountains who has convinced 3,000 people that he's Jesus Christ. There's going to be such great signs and wonders that, if possible, even God's very elect people are going to be deceived. What is a false Christ? A false second coming. So, this theory of Serge Monast is not coming out of nowhere. we actually see that this theory is probably inspired by the Bible to a big degree. Right? We see again, Second Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie. Revelation 13:14. Because of the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. The coming of the lawless one. This is Second Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9 to 11. The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with how Satan works. He will use all sorts of displays of power through signs and wonders that serve the lie, and all the ways that wickedness deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie. Once again, this is not just some little thing like, oh, you'd rather want to have sex. This is to deceive the very elect. God's chosen people are not going to be deceived by a little bit of sexual allure. We're going to fall, but this isn't going to skew our view of what is the truth. Let's not mix up what I'm saying, because I'm not saying we're not going to struggle and we're not going to fall, but something simple as the allure of sex is not going to cloud our judgment with so much cognitive dissonance to the point we're not even going to accept the truth of God. No, this is way too weak of a deception. And once again, we have scriptures such as Revelation 13:14, and by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. Once again, remember what I said earlier. What is this wound really alluding to? Was there a battle? Was there a war? Isaiah chapter 5 verse 20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Once again, you see this happening in today's world where you are being targeted and called the intolerable close-minded one for wanting people to live according to God's laws and not have them be deceived by a false sense of empathy and liberate them from all responsibility, because this is false light, right? This is the modern spiritual light. Oh, be sexually liberated. Lucifer has brought us the light. Let us get rid of close-mindedness and religious judgments. Let us be freed instead. Let us be overly accepting, once again, swallowed up by a sea of compassion in which they're drowning. So we see this already happening. But let's get back to the main point, because he made some pretty strong claims, right? We're not just gonna randomly believe that just because it somehow or another aligns with the Bible. So I want to show you a lot of things. So remember, the second stage, what it was, is going to be faking second comings of various Abrahamic religions, such as Judaism, which are for some reason still waiting for their Messiah, and Islam with the Mahdi. And you might say, okay, we do not have this holographic technology yet. And here's where I want to say a few things. So, first of all, we have to assume that even if our government was good, that their technology would be more advanced than ours. You cannot give the population the same level of technology and power that you yourself as the leader have. You need to, by very definition, be careful of what you give to everybody. That needs to be tightly controlled and safe. You can't have the whole population walk at the edge of the newest AI inventions or whatever. You need to release that which is sure, which is battle-proof, which is tested. For example, ChatGPT, right? We have much more capabilities than ChatGPT when it comes to AI, but this is some of the things that they're releasing to the public. So even if the government was good, they have more advanced technology. And there's also this theory around that the technology is not just advanced by 1 or 2 years, but that it's actually tens of years, 10, 20, 30 years. And if you said that in the 1920s, okay, that wouldn't have been so crazy. The government is 20 years ahead in technological progress. Okay, sure, I guess so. Maybe they can already make better pictures by now with the camera or whatever. But imagine that same statement in 2025. Imagine the world was still caught up technologically in 2005. 20 years is not that long when you think about it this way. But look at the insane amount of difference. Just look at the last 10 years. And here's the thing about technological progress, it is exponential because we have agents that in of themselves increase technological progress even more, namely AI, artificial intelligence. for those of you who have different beliefs, the introduction of fallen angels, which speed everything of this up. So this is a possibility. Let's once again, let's not come to conclusions. Let's just allow for this possibility that maybe the government is not just 1 or 2 years ahead in terms of technology. What if it's just 20? Imagine where we're going to be in 20 years if we look at where we came from and assume this progress is exponential. So even in 20 years, the world could look totally different. You could have microscopic cameras that are not even a millimeter big that they could have already implanted in all your devices and everything in your home because they're just advanced. I mean, I think this is even going to be here in 4 or 5 years. I think it's maybe can you already buy it? I'm not sure, but this is probably already here. But because we're not like accustomed to that or used to that yet, we don't think this is a possibility that they just put a microscopic camera in your device. So even if you tape your big camera, they still fucking see you, right? Like even imagine you look back in the days, you have TV. What if they already had AI systems to systematically control you and acclimate you to their agendas and warm up the water slowly, so to speak? You know, like we don't know. We don't know. So for all we know, they could have whatever kinds of technology. And it's not like holograms are so far away, like it's pretty much already here. So I want to show you something. Well, here, for example, we created holograms you can touch. You could soon shake a virtual colleague's hand. This was almost 4 years ago. My colleagues and I, working at the University of Glasgow's Bendable Electronics and Sensing Technologies Research Group, have now developed a system of holograms of people using aerophatics, creating feelings of touch with jets of air. Those jets of air deliver a sensation of touch on people's fingers, hands, and wrists. So they already have holograms that you can touch and feel with air. In time, this could be developed to allow you to meet a virtual avatar of a colleague on the other side of the world and really feel their handshake. It could even be the first step towards building something like a holodeck. Once again, they also used this technology in airspace where they beamed up, what was it, a commander up into the station? I'm not sure. I'll show you the article and the picture though. So this technology,
Tecnologia! Tecnologia! Tecnologia!
this technology is pretty much already around. I'm gonna show you a few videos right here of drone and hologram shows which are already out there. Like this is real. This is not CGI or whatever. No, this is already real. We already they are already showing us these capabilities, that they have these capabilities. So as you can see, this is pretty damn realistic. Now imagine this was also accompanied by natural disasters. Now imagine the whole skies were filled up. Right? I'm going to show you some more clips here. Where, for example, in China, you have these bizarre events and sightings. For example, in China, you see people have seen like a whole city in the air.
This video surfaced out of China, and it looks like their city is floating in the clouds. Of course, we can't verify if the video is real or not, but we have seen things like this before.
You just gotta ask yourself, are they already doing this? Are they already practicing this? Is this already happening? What about the people who see multiple moons? I mean, there's countless thousands and tens of thousands of people talking about how they saw two moons or four suns and taking pictures and nowadays everything is like, oh yeah, it's just AI, and if it's not in legacy media, we're not gonna believe it. But like anybody can take a picture and upload it. But we just don't believe anything anymore if it's not officially recognized. But there's thousands of pictures such as these, and even Dubai, they had 2 moons or 2 suns, I think, and everybody saw it. The whole city saw it. So many people took pictures. Like this isn't just something AI or something we made up. There's bizarre events happening in the sky. But let's just at least come to the conclusion that they would have, they have the technological possibility to do such a thing, most likely. And if they don't, they will. Okay, now if you want to say, oh, the government, they're showing us everything and they don't have anything in secret, they don't have advanced technology that we don't know of, sure. But we're going to have these capabilities eventually, even if we don't have them right now, which I don't believe. I believe we have them. I'm sure we have them because based on what they're showing us. But again, I'm just trying to stay neutral and not show you that I'm not just some crazy conspiracy theorist who wants to believe in the conspiracy, but that I'm just a rational thinker, right? And it led me to things such as these, which are painted as crazy conspiracies by the mainstream. And so let's just be real. Technically, this is possible. They technically have the technological power to do such things or miracles. Now, the third stage of his plan was using low frequency beams or waves to implant auditory hallucinations or words into people's head, basically voices. And now you might say, okay, this is insane, but I just wanna just show you once again just a few things. For example, we have voice to skull. So this was something that the army or the military have developed in the 1970s, in which they were able to generate voices inside of somebody's head using frequency modulator transmitters and the playing with frequencies to generate these voices. So once again, this was 1970 or 1974. They 100% have this technology by now. They 100% have it. And there's more. We also have here, for example, another article. The microwave scream inside your skull. The US military bankrolled early development of a non-lethal microwave weapon that creates sound inside your head. But in the end, the gadget may be just as likely to wind up in shopping malls as on battlefields. As I reported in New Scientist, the project is known as Medusa. Wow, who is surprised at that name? So once again, they're coming like, oh, we're because you see this also in pictures. It's like, oh, they want to beam music at you so you can have individualized advertisements. But so it's like, oh wait, you're saying that technology is already here. We just don't know that yet, but that technology is here. Again, here we have the same thing. This is the official website, voice to skull devices. The sound modulation, maybe voice or audio subliminal messages. And now, interesting, once again, they say, oh, one application of voice to skull is used as an electronic scarecrow to frighten birds in the vicinity of airports. It's like, come on now. You have the capability to electromagnetically or I don't even know how this works to beam sound into people's head, because in the same way I don't know how the internet works, we don't know how anything works, we just know it works. So you have the capability to do that, and then it's almost like mockery. Oh, but we're gonna use it to frighten birds in the vicinity of airports. It's like, come on now. And now imagine they were already using this. All right, for example, if you think about schizophrenia, people who hear voices, this could add another layer to what spiritual people just call just people seeing into the spiritual realm. There could technically be a technological component to this, right? Because I'll show you a clip here of this guy, and there's another shooter.
Yeah, the demons, man.
Demons?
Voices.
Yeah, no problem.
Voices.
Voices and demons?
Where's the voices?
Based on family accounts, a source with knowledge of the investigation says Aaron Alexis had trouble sleeping in recent years, was hearing voices in his head. Law enforcement sources say he made contact with 2 VA hospitals for psychological issues.
The man responsible for the Paducah school shootings told a parole board he still hears voices 25 years later.
So you gotta ask yourself, maybe they aren't crazy. Because I don't believe in crazy. For me, an explanation is, well, you see in the spiritual realm, right? You're able to pick up demons for some reason because the veil has been lifted or whatever. But what if in some cases we are actually dealing with advanced technology? Because once again, the technology we have nowadays, you go back 200-300 years, they would worship you as a god. You could probably convince a lot of people to leave their religion based with the technology we have nowadays. So now just open your minds a little bit to the possibility of what's going to be possible in the future. Once again, all those sci-fi movies, everything you're seeing, this is all programming. This is all going to happen. They're telling you. They have been telling you. But we're going to get into predictive programming a little later on. But I just want to show you this is not, I'm not grabbing this out of thin air. They are pretty much admitting it. The US military is making lasers that create voices out of thin air. Now they're saying, oh, within 3 years they might have it, but I believe they already have it. And once again, interesting analogy that can produce an effect like a haunted walkie-talkie or the biblical burning bush. Right, right. Here, U.S. Army developing synthetic telepathy, 2008. But this is not just beaming sounds into somebody's head using frequencies. This is a technology that will enable soldiers to convey messages by thought. This is like already advanced. But you're telling me they don't have that other technology yet? Like how does something ain't right? You also see another story, psyoptech voices in your head. At a government workshop some time ago, I heard someone describe a new tool that was described as the voice of Allah. This was said to be a device that would operate at a distance and would deliver a message that only a single person could hear. The story was that it was tested in a conflict situation in Iraq and pointed at one insurgent in a group who whipped around looking in all directions and began a heated conversation with his compatriots who did not hear the message. With every new technology, it is in the beginning, it's all good, it's just going to be positive. But when we look back at the recent few years, there's always a downside to it. And usually the downside comes a little later. Here's also another interesting one, and obviously this is not some mainstream article. This is when we get into governmental documents. But since 2016, there has been an increase in reported cases of intelligence officers and diplomats hearing pulsing sounds and experiencing neurophysiologic and cognitive symptoms. These varied and often intense symptoms manifest in ways similar to a traumatic brain injury, TBI, but without inciting trauma. So, since 2016, a lot of intelligence officers and diplomats are having TBI, traumatic brain injury. Now, what are some symptoms of TBI? Well, one of them they already alluded to, right? Hearing pulsing sounds. Now, you also have psychotic symptoms associated with TBI, which are auditory hallucinations. More than half also have ringing in the ears. Tinnitus definitely has something to do with the hearing. Auditory processing disorder, more than half of the people who have this. So why do people who work in these areas get these same diseases? Are they being targeted, or what's really happening here? And here's another interesting story which comes to mind. It's called the Ghost Tape Number 10, the haunted mixtape of the Vietnam War. So in the Vietnam War, and once again this was in the 1970s, when America went to Vietnam, they used they used sounds to deter the Vietnamese people from going to war with them. So what they would do is they would, supposedly, this is the official story, they would, in the nighttime, they would fly around with helicopters and they would blast through loudspeakers um voices of people saying, I'm dead, go home, because the Vietnamese people are Buddhists, so they believe that the dead people who, when their bodies aren't being processed properly and traditionally cremated or whatever they do with the bodies, their souls, they roam on earth. And so they thought, well, we're going to use this to have them go home and stop the war if they all of a sudden think they hear their companions who fell in war say, please, please go home, I'm trapped now, don't do this, brother, don't be like me, they're gonna go home. So they flew around with these helicopters and blasted these speakers at them, and then they said, oh, but we weren't too successful because a lot of Vietnamese, they realized it was just speakers and they started shooting at wherever the speakers came from. But something just doesn't seem right. Like, you really think they would fly around in helicopters and use gigantic speakers, and somehow they thought that the Vietnamese people would then think these are the souls of the doomed flying around in helicopters with gigantic speakers? This doesn't make a lot of sense. But if we assume that the news isn't being 100% transparent here and that they were actually using these tools which they were developing, and we know from history that they always use the tools they're developing in war, they love to use them in war, then it makes a lot more sense. Because you also have a lot of Vietnamese soldiers coming out and saying, no, they heard it in their heads. I swear I heard it in my head. And some of them did go crazy. And I'm going to play you a recording of this original sound right here.
Vợ tôi đang bà đang về với con. Tôi đã về với mình đây. Nhưng tôi còn đâu mảnh hình hài nữa. Tôi đã chết rồi má con bây ơi. Tôi thảm thương biết chừng nào. Các bạn của tôi ơi, tôi trở về để nói cho các bạn biết rằng tôi đã chết. Địa ngục, cái chết thật là oan uổng, thật là vô nghĩa, thật là nhưng lúc tôi biết thì đã quá muộn rồi. Các bạn ơi, các bạn còn sống, còn trong ngày các bạn gặp được người thân yêu của các bạn có muốn tôi nói trở về các bạn, muốn mau đi, nhất quyết mau đi, lìa bỏ các bạn. Nếu không thì không thể tránh được cái sự cảm thương như tôi. Trở về đi các bạn ơi, nếu không thì quá muộn rồi, quá trễ rồi. Trở về đi, về đi các bạn ơi, về đi.
Now, does this sound like something you would play from a loudspeaker, or does this sound like maybe the beginnings of some type of frequency technology to beam into people's head? And so I quickly want to talk about something else, which is just a possibility. This isn't by Serge Monas. This is just something that I've stumbled across when doing some research, and I really wanted to read this to you. It's called microwave, and once again, this is official pubmed.gov. This is officially government. These are official government websites. So this is not. This is even on the hierarchy of trustworthiness. If we were complete matrix slaves, this would be the highest one. So microwave radio frequencies, 5G, 6G, graphene nanomaterials, technologies used in neurological warfare. Background: scientific literature with no conflicts of interest shows that even below the limits defined by the International Commission of Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, microwaves from telecommunication technologies cause numerous health effects: neurological, oxidative stress, carcinogenicity, deoxyribonucleic acid, and immune system damage, electrohypersensitivity. The majority of these biological effects of non-thermal microwave radiation have been known since the 1970s. Methods: detailed scientific, political, and military documents were analyzed. Most of the scientific literature comes from PubMed. Once again, this is an official website from the government. The other articles, except for a few, come from impacted journals. The rare scientific documents that were not peer-reviewed were produced by recognized scientists in their field. The rest of the documentation comes from official sources: political European Union, World Health Organization. More on those a little later, because it's like it triggers me, like if Serge Monast was alive today, he would say they are also opposing us. But military, US Air Force, and NATO, patents, a national newspaper. And so here are the results, which is like when you read this, you're like, what the hell? How is this on an official government website? But I'm just gonna read it to you because I found it. Results: since their emergence, the authorities have deployed and encouraged the use of wireless technologies: 2G, 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, WiMAX, DECT, Bluetooth, cell phone towers, masts, base stations, small cells, etc., in full awareness of their harmful effects on health. And we also know this, but we're just being told it's so minor, it's not really going to matter. Even though, once again, we see skyrocketing of cancer and a bunch of stuff. Might be correlated after all. I personally shut off my devices when I go to bed at night, or I turn the internet off and I unplug my charging station. Consequences of microwave radiation from communication networks are comparable to the effects of low power directed energy microwave weapons, whose objectives include behavioral modification through neurological brain targeting. Above 20 gigahertz, 5G behaves like an unconventional chemical weapon. Biomedical engineering via graphene-based nanomaterials will enable brain-computer connections linked wirelessly to the Internet of Everything through 5G and 6G networks, 2030, and artificial intelligence, gradually leading to human-machine fusion, cyborg, before the 2050s. Also see here at the bottom a keyword: COVID-19 vaccines. Now, what does this have to do with, you might ask yourself? Well, there is this quote-unquote conspiracy theory that in you have graphenes. And the fact checker obviously came out and told us, no, there's no graphenes in. But interestingly enough, graphenes can actually be programmed. Let's look at some different uses, how graphene can be programmed. Yes, graphene can be programmed, meaning its properties and behavior can be controlled and customized in various ways. This is achieved through techniques like mechanical deformation, hydrogenation, and the use of electric fields to manipulate its electronic and optical properties. And then we have some examples. Graphene oxide architectures can be programmed by specific sequences of mechanical deformations, resulting in progressively larger features. Active graphene-based paper can be used to create programmable self-folding devices. Then you have electric field manipulation. Graphene can be used to create programmable metasurfaces that can dynamically control the amplitude and phase of theta-hertz waves, enabling beam steering and other functionalities. Once again, you can access them wirelessly and they respond to frequencies. They can, let me continue reading. Microfluidic sensors have been developed and can be programmed to detect specific DNA sequences with high sensitivity. These little nanoparticles that can be injected to look at these specific DNA sequences are incredibly small. And so you're telling me we have technology that is this practically immeasurably small to literally edit our DNA, but we can't yet beam noises and sounds into people's head using frequencies? Right. And especially into those who already have externally programmable and responsive to frequency particles, nanoparticles inside of them? Right. Other programming techniques. Functionalized with different molecules, graphene oxide can be programmed for specific applications like drug delivery or sensing. Once again, they pass the blood barrier. They can go wherever they want them to go. Graphene can be produced by dispersing graphite in a liquid medium and then separating it by centrifugation. This allows for some control over the properties of the resulting graphene sheets. Graphenes can actually be programmed and used. And even on YouTube, you can see almost like they're telling us, and even if you go to the comments, people are awake, quoting Bible scripture, etc. What if you were injected with graphene, and then it's like a video of a person merging into a robot, but in the video there's no actual. I might show you the video right here, but I'm not sure if I can, or my video is gonna get shadowed. I mean, it probably already will, but yeah, I just wanted to show you that. Now, we also have here, for example, links. Time for Truth on the presence of graphene in the comments, and we have investigations. Dr. Ricardo Delgado Martin and the technical report by Pablo Campra. Detection of graphene in by micro Raman spectroscopy claimed that the contain graphene. So they have a team of researchers, and they have proven that there's graphene in the. And we also see at the bottom, the silicon-based electronic components we use today generate clock speeds in the gigahertz range, where 1 gigahertz is equal to 1,000 million cycles per second. The scientists showed that graphene can convert signals with these frequencies into signals with frequencies that are thousands of times higher than those created by silicon. So once again, this is a immensely powerful material, and I'm not going to go too deep in what graphene is because it is complicated and there's a lot of information, but it's basically, how you see in like science fiction movies that they have like these super bulletproof armors that are super thin. Graphene may be used to create that. And it also says here that it's able to absorb radiation, meaning that if contained in a vacuum, it will be highly toxic and harmful to human health. Now, if we assume that the elites are just a bunch of globalists who don't care about us, this would have two effects. Number one, this would make an individual susceptible to maybe something such as these low frequency waves. And number two, the agenda is pretty useful in a time where robots are taking over a lot of jobs. But then obviously you have the fact checkers. They come out and say, no, no, this is obviously not true. But interestingly enough, then we see, graphene oxide as novel adjuvant. So all of a sudden they're coming out and they're saying, oh, but by the way, if we were to use graphene in that would be super useful and helpful. And it's like, right, right, right. Again, here you see the U.S. Food and Drug Administration released documents from Pfizer that confirm graphene oxide is in its clean. And they come, no, this is wrong. There's no graphene in there. And it's like, yes, if fact checkers say so. Because I mean, for me nowadays, it's like, oh, if the fact checkers say that something, it's like, oh, then probably the opposite is true by now. Like by now, you should. Like once again, I can't start everything from the bottom. You're just gonna have to have some things already. Because you see the same thing, oh, the 2030 agenda conspiracy, fact checkers come out. No, this has nothing to do to enslave humanity or whatever. Thank you, fact checkers. Or even here, fact checking 5 viral COVID-19 falsehoods. It's like, okay. But interestingly enough, in recent years, what they're saying has shifted a little bit. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, we're actually sorry. We actually made mistakes. And then we have AstraZeneca admits it can cause rare side effects in court documents for first time. This is 2024. Former NSW president Dominic Perrottet declares mandates as wrong in his last week in parliament. EU made a mistake over. Oh, thank you, BBC. So like, thank you for telling us now. Like, no way. Lockdown politician admits mandates were wrong. It's like now it's like, oh, now they're just sorry, but now nobody really cares anymore. And once again, I'll show you the death numbers here on the screen. Okay. Now, if we were to assume that this was lab made, as the controlled opposition Donald Trump initially claimed, although he also pushed for you to get, so don't be deceived. But once again, they have to tell you, so they use their controlled opposition to tell you. If this was truly created in a lab for China, and this was truly just all part of the steps to get you into a new world order, then they have committed millions upon millions of deaths, and nobody's talking about it, and nobody cares, and we're right in the middle of it. But because it's on a global level and not centralized in a single country, people don't really notice it. But if this is true, and this was made in a lab, and this was used to put graphene into people so that they can then use this in the coming times to inflict voices within people's heads, while at the same time furthering their agenda, then World War III already happened. People just don't know. And it is happening because it's not fast acting, it's slow acting. But yeah, you see even here, now they're coming out DNA manipulation and 5G, another 19 myth busted. And it's like, what does the Bible say about mingling DNA? Daniel chapter 2 verse 33. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. This is also about end time scripture, mingling DNA. There were also a lot of quote unquote conspiracies that this changes your DNA, that this mingles with, because once again, what is mRNA, DNA? It's in the word. It does work on your DNA, and a lot of people say that this is not. This has multiple purposes, right? Number one is graphene. Number two is the population, and number three is maybe it corrupts your seed. We don't know about all the spiritual warfare tools we have, but by now we know that there is physical things which they use, right? You see in the foods we eat, in the music we consume. Why not in the things we put inside of our body through other means, right? Because if this is true, that the Coke is demonic, that the Monster Energy drink is demonic, that the music is demonic, this is probably as well. Once again, if you're watching it this far, I think I can slowly start to stop with the sugarcoating language and just speak a little more biased. But yeah, I'm just trying to show you, like, I'm not just some crazy conspiracy theorist. Like, we know this by now, but it's not mainstream, so people don't really care. And so this is a possibility that these nanoparticles could actually be inside the. And I just really quick want to mention this verse again because I just noticed something. Daniel chapter 2, verse 43. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Now, there are many interpretations that this means, well, the nations are being mixed in the end of times. You know, the globalization, in which case this will be true, is that we will mingle with one another, ethnicity wise. But I get a different interpretation from this. What is clay in the Bible? We are made from clay. So if we go to Genesis chapter 2, verses 7, and then the Lord God formed man from the clay of the earth, and he breathed into his face the breath of life, and man became a living soul. We also see this in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7. Our bodies are made of clay, yet we have the treasure of the good news in them. This shows that the superior power of this treasure belongs to God and doesn't come from us. And if you're a Christian, you already know that we're made from clay. I don't think you need more verses illustrating that. But so, when it's talking about him seeing iron mixing with clay in the end of times. This does sound a lot like what we've just talked about, doesn't it? How they want us to become part robotic, part machine, part iron, and also mingling themselves with a demonic seed. This could be also part of the mRNA. Then it says, but they shall not cleave one to another. I'm going to show you a different translation here so it's a bit more clear what it says for you guys. What this basically means is that they will never be one. Iron is not mixed with clay. No matter what they do, they will never be one. And, this very much could sound like exactly what is happening. So I just wanted to mention that because, in quote unquote traditional Christianity, it has a different interpretation, but I really think we should be open minded and we should look at all possible interpretations and come to the best conclusion. So I just quickly wanted to mention that. And here I want to say a few more words on if you have taken the thing and maybe you're a little bit shocked by the information you've just heard because maybe you're aware of some of the things, maybe you weren't. I have taken two myself because I was stupid back then and I was asleep and I was a drug addict and I had one panic attack in my life, in my whole entire life. And that was when I realized what I let them do to me. And it was indeed a very difficult process and I had to come to terms with the fact that, well, I'm probably gonna die young now or sooner, and that I literally took Satan's poison, and that I'm probably gonna get cancer, and it was difficult, but and I had some symptoms, but I I prayed about it, I fasted, and my symptoms disappeared. Now I regularly fast, and I haven't really had any complications either. I'm ready, The thing is that God knew you were gonna be stupid. God knew you were gonna do this. It's going exactly according to plan. God might even take some people home a little earlier. So there's no reason to fear. Literally none. It has to have gone that way. God can heal your body like this with the snip of a finger. So you need to pray and you need to fast. And once again, I know people say like, "Oh, this is the mark of the beast." Don't listen to these people. I know there's a lot of big YouTube channels that say that this is the mark of the beast, but you have not lost your salvation. You have not taken the mark of the beast. I know Revelation well enough to know this is not the mark of the beast. And by the end of the video, you will also know well enough that this is not the mark of the beast, if you even know what the mark of the beast is yet. But yeah, don't fear. Every single hair on your head is accounted for. You're gonna live on the second exactly how long you're supposed to live. You were meant to be stupid. You understand? It's like this is the whole point. This is the whole challenge. This is the whole game. Just overcome. Just stay strong no matter what happens. I might get cancer. I had myocarditis symptoms. I prayed, I fasted, and I don't fear anymore. If I get symptoms, so be it. If I die, I die. I have such a deep trust in God that I know I'm going to live for exactly how long I need to. And if you've taken it, don't you waste even a single ounce of worry or fear. That's just the devil trying to use an excuse. Once again, my brothers and sisters, Isaiah 54:17 tells us very clearly, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is from me, says the Lord. So don't you fear. It's going exactly according to plan. Now, let's get into this fourth and final chapter of Serge Monast's Project Bluebeam. And yeah, this is gonna be a really interesting one. I think to start this off, we're just gonna directly look at some news articles. We've known about a lot of things for a long time now, right? And just because something is in the news doesn't mean that now it is only true. As a matter of fact, Oftentimes that is not the case. But even that is in the news. So I'm going to show you some articles here. For example, we have, and again, this is legacy news. We know who runs legacy news. So yeah, this is quote unquote official. And they're coming out with all of these articles, especially in the recent 2 years. Since the beginning of 2023, there's been a lot more talk about UFOs or aliens or UAPs because they rebranded the word UFOs for unidentified anomalous phenomena. But it goes hand in hand. It's just a different word. But let's look at some of these. You have just regular articles. Former NASA scientist says they found life on Mars in the 1970s. Former Israeli space security chief says extraterrestrials exist, and Trump knows about it. Why would Legacy News make an article about the Israeli space security chief and about him saying Trump knows aliens exist and therefore he knows as well? The hardest part of discovering alien life might be announcing it. Here's how NASA might break the news. What do you mean? Have we? Scientists find strongest evidence yet of life on an alien planet. Scientists are getting serious about UFOs. Here's why. And then you also see the rebranding. UAPs. It's now rebranded. And they're telling us latest Pentagon report reveals hundreds of new UFO sightings. The US government's top UFO scientist has an open mind about alien visitation. This one's pretty interesting too. Alien mothership lurking in our solar system could be watching us with tiny probes. Pentagon official suggests. Like, what does this even mean? Like, these are accredited people. A draft paper by a Harvard scientist and the head of the Pentagon's UFO office has raised the idea an alien mothership could be in the solar system, sending out tiny probes dubbed dandelion seeds to explore the planets within. And once again, they're telling us, oh, they're receiving dozens of UFO reports a month. And also, if you've been on the internet recently, there has been a lot of stuff going on with beams flying around and a bunch of weird drone sightings and people claiming they see UFOs and aliens and bizarre stuff happening in the sky. But we're gonna get to all of that. So we can definitely see just in legacy news that they're sort of starting to talk about it. Because back in the day, it was like if you said, "Oh, I believe in UFOs or in aliens," you're like a crazy conspiracy theorist. But now, since the beginning of 2023, it's slowly starting to get normalized. Now, once again, these articles, they're not like, oh, we know aliens exist 100%, but it's almost like they're starting to acclimate us to this idea of quote unquote alien life. But this is nowhere near all of it. I think I want to start at the very beginning. It's not the very beginning, but I just want to mention Aleister Crowley here. A lot of you probably already know him. He is the guy who pretty much revolutionized occultism in the West. Now, occultism doesn't stem from him, or as you might know it, New Age, which is sort of a mixture of esoteric teachings and occultism. He is the one who really made this famous. You also had the Beatles who were super interested in him, and then the rituals he did, and he used to do a lot of rituals and he used to summon these entities according to by own admission, and they would do a lot of also especially dark rituals because for some reason you need children sacrifices and sexual conduct to summon the most powerful ones, and he summoned this entity called Lam, which sort of looks like an alien. Obviously, here's also his statement. Today they call them angels and demons, tomorrow they will call them something else. And so this was in the beginning of the 19th century. Actually, when he summoned the entity, that was around 1917 and 1918. And he was deep into occultism, and he's also the one that really revolutionized it and brought it here into the West. And he was the beginning of the normalization of this. And so I just want to go through a few events with you in history. This is nowhere near all of it, but that's not the point of the video. The point is not for me to show you every single thing and to go deep into conspiracy and what could be, what couldn't be. I just want to mention a few events. For example, you have Jimmy Carter in 1977. He was a Christian, and he used to speak against, aliens and UFOs. He used to say you're a crazy nutcase if you believed in that. But then he said he saw one, and from that day he decided to never badmouth anybody who talks about these things. And he actually ran for president, and his whole shtick was he's gonna tell us whether the government has information on aliens. And he did actually end up winning. And once he got elected, he went to the CIA and he asked. And I want you to quickly understand that the government is not truly the head of this whole thing. He's just a spokesperson. He's just the highest of the visible. So the president can't just go and force them to give him all the information that they have. No, he's gonna tell somebody, an informant, and he's gonna go to his boss, and he's gonna go to his boss, and they're like, okay, look, this is what we got. This is what we're gonna show you. And even in the CIA, you have the public official, the guy who's on top, or on the head. But it goes deeper than that. So it's not like the president knows everything. But basically, what happened was Jimmy Carter he asked for those documents, and he wanted to know, well, what's up? And you see him crying and sobbing, and his world is like destroyed after he receives the information. He was, according to the story that was corroborated by more than one witness, US presidents are only given a cursory overview of the subject, so he wasn't given a full detailed explanation. They only generally provide information on a need to know basis and do not consider presidential curiosity as sufficient need to know. And once they gave him that information, he sunk his head in his hands, and he began to sob, and he was visibly disturbed for weeks afterwards. And what they told him or showed him was that major religions, such as Christianity, were programs created by extraterrestrials to prevent us from destroying ourselves while they ran their experiments on us, and that they made us. And in this moment, it became clear to him that this information could cause tremendous economic and social upheaval. But it's pretty interesting what they believe to be true, right? And in 1987, Reagan was president, and he made some very weird or odd speeches. I'm going to show you them. He made the same speech multiple times. I'm going to show you all of them, actually.
Humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. I keep, in my frustration sometimes, actually, if you count some of the things going on in smaller countries and all, there have been about 114 wars since World War II. But I've often wondered, what if all of us in the world discovered that we were threatened by a power from outer space, from another planet? Wouldn't we all of a sudden find that we didn't have any differences between us at all? We were all human beings, citizens of the world, and wouldn't we come together to fight that particular threat? I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children, wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. Well, I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us we can bring about that realization.
And so why is Reagan talking about aliens and how we would unite and set our differences aside? And it almost sounds like he hopes aliens are going to invade us. Why would the president of the United States talk about this 40 years ago? He was also in a meeting with Gorbachev, who was the leader for the Soviet Union at that time, and they were talking, and he asked him if there was an alien invasion, would you be our allies? And he was really obsessed with this topic, and there was even an article that they will agree to pause the Cold War in case of an alien invasion. And isn't this just slightly odd? And I'm going to tell you about some recent events. So, for example, you have obviously, I think a lot of you know Bob Lazar, who was on Joe Rogan's podcast, who said they had anti-gravitational stuff and they had bodies and they had all of these things, but the government just wasn't telling us. But here's what you got to understand: if they truly didn't wanted us to know something, we wouldn't know it. So, if there truly were these aliens that we've known for tens of years at this point, and they wouldn't have wanted us to know, we wouldn't know. And they especially wouldn't start to push it on mainstream news such as they have in the last 2 years. Now, it isn't like page number one. So your grandma is not calling you in hysteria and saying, oh my God, aliens are real. It's not page one, aliens are real, but they're desensitizing us to it slowly but surely. And we have a lot of bizarre things happening. For example, you had the Mexican government coming out and saying, look, we have bodies of extraterrestrials.
One of the main goals of what we're trying to do here today is to move conjecture and conspiracy towards science and sanity, and you do that with data.
These two tiny mummified bodies, images of which were shared around the world this week, are now the subject of much controversy. For Jaime Maussan, a Mexican journalist and longtime UFO enthusiast, the alien-looking forms are among the most important discoveries in the history of humankind. But for many scientists, they are an already debunked, perhaps even criminal stunt. Maussan gained instant international attention when he stood before Mexico's Congress just days ago and presented the two figures. He shared scientific analysis and study results he argues prove the bodies are about 1,000 years old and not related to any known earthly species. Reuters gained exclusive access to his office to see them. The bodies appear ancient and share characteristics with humans. Maussan claims they were found around 2017 in Peru.
Porque es lo más importante que le ha pasado a la humanidad.
It is the most important thing that has happened to humanity because it's the opportunity for us to evolve, for us to grow, for us to maybe initiate communication with other intelligences. I think this phenomenon is the only one that gives us the opportunity to come together.
But the backlash from the scientific community came just as swiftly as Maussan's newfound fame, with scientists and archaeologists in Peru calling the bodies a farce.
Once again, you probably didn't know about that because it's not pushed yet. This is going to be pushed, like the thing was. And here I also want to take a look at another story where a family was visited by a quote-unquote alien in their backyard. So this happened in 2024. This family in America reported that aliens landed in their backyard. They fell from the sky and they landed in their backyard. And it was a pretty big story, you know.
It is the police call everybody will be talking about. Thanks for joining us here at 6 o'clock. I'm Denise Valdez.
I'm Brian Loftus. A family says something crashed into their backyard, prompting them to call 911, saying they saw creatures walking around.
Our 8 News Now investigators digging into this for weeks now. And tonight, our David Charnes with the video you will only see on 8 News Now. David?
Right, Denise, sources telling the 8 News Now investigators that several agencies believe something landed or crashed. Whether it was non-humans or not, it certainly scared the people living on this property. Now, before we show you that video, listen to their call for help.
There's like an 8-foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
Okay, where is this on your property?
In my backyard. I swear to God, this is not a joke. This is actually, we terrified of it.
So there's 2 people or 2 subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large. They're like 8 foot, 9 feet, 10 foot. I don't know. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes, like I can't explain it, and big mouth. They're shiny eyes, and they're not human. They're 100% they're not human.
Okay.
Well, the 8 News Now investigators obtaining video as officers then responded to the call you just heard. You'll see the officers also saw something in the sky that night, but the big question is, what was it, and is it all connected?
Leave her alone.
It's almost midnight on May 1st when a Las Vegas Metro Police officer's body cam catches this, something flashing low in the sky.
911 emergency.
Minutes later,
there's like an 8 foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
Someone calls 911 reporting 2 large figures in their backyard.
No, I'm so nervous right now.
The 8 News Now investigators obtaining another officer's video as he's sent to the Northwest Valley home.
I have butterflies, bro. Everyone saw a shooting star, then these people say there's aliens in their backyard.
By now, it's more than an hour after that bright light. Officers meeting up with the caller and his family.
What'd you see?
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like around 10 feet tall.
I'm not going to BS you guys. One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious. Did you see anything land in your backyard, or?
They see like a big, that's what they say. They see like a big something with light.
What I saw right now, I do believe in it.
Police walk into the backyard to investigate, but Metro blacked out that part of the video because it's considered private property. What's clear, they're taking this call seriously.
Hey, this might sound like a really dumb question, but did you guys see anything fall out of the sky?
Asking others what they saw.
I would normally discount it as nothing. However, seeing as one of my partners said they saw it too, only reason I'm actually investigating it further.
That investigation turning up no concrete answers as of Wednesday. Whatever or whoever fell into that yard, long gone within minutes.
Oh, hey. If those 9 foot beings come back, don't call us, all right? Deal with it yourself. I ain't dealing with that.
So yeah, this is quite weird.
And as you could see, you could even see on the body cam footage of the police officer that there was something falling from the sky when he arrived at the house. And once again, they gave the same description as everybody else did. They were 7 to 8 feet tall. And they just looked like aliens. But it was a bit weird because what ended up happening is that they went silent and their footage never really got released. You have some footage which is released.
Me dijo la médica me va a decir un show. Me va a tener que decirme cerró y es muy callado. Pero que la primera que la vez iba a contar que la acabas. A mí dicen pálpale, hay que utilizarla con camisas. Pero llevan usas, llevan un virus.
vuelta con silus, de vuelta casi cayó con 2 silus.
Ni comnici, pero pral. Si no te pares y con volar.
Hora me que cantis París le gallengue a la chorsi, hora y todo. Tosi. ¡Ay! ¡Permisor! Calmungarela me cansiles vareso. Kailo, cherro que chuli. Kailo, cherro. Kailo.
Uy, chetar.
Chidikau.
Agladel, paró.
Chidikau.
Paró cayó, si le unía caca bare, Agladel.
Kai, cherro.
Adelo, diles.
Firmisar, sale.
Te cocharé que te camiona, Agladelo.
Kai, firmisar, te sale.
Agladel te
pero firmisar, porque no, cherro, que calmungarela me.
Diles, eso lo son viendo para acá.
Kai.
Ande el camión, lo conchadica del camión. Segundo, de izquierda para acá, de cables.
Kai, cherro, chidikau, Agladel.
Agladel, concha, cortelo, concha, chistilo.
Kai, forklift o camión.
Eso toma muy. Cartelo, pegachari, palalo, que te acordó con la. Palalo, dile que a casa de Lombrindi. Bien luchado, o sea, pegachari, se adolo.
Chidikau, Agladel, que
vaya, me dígale completico.
Oye, de cables.
Kai.
Cortelo, de que acá, dile que acá callale, hay muy pelón, varón pelón.
Ya, cherro.
En Charlos te adó, dijeron de. Concha, Claudia, que chulo.
Pero sabó segundo.
And they were talking about on the news about how these cars showed up where they were, black tinted vans, and then all of a sudden they don't want to talk anymore. And he was like, the woman on the news was like posing as the investigator, and the guy was like clarifying, no, this is not some secret government agency that wants them to shut up. I'll show you the clip.
There are so many conspiracy theorists now. The internet is sort of on fire over this one. So it's probably most important at this point that I bring in Ben Hansen, because he is the host of Discovery Plus's UFO Witness, and he's been following this case closely. Okay, so Ben, when we talked before, we didn't know a bunch of this other stuff, like the broken leg that was hanging in an awkward position and the eyelashes, and we took video, yet no one has seen the video. This business about police coming to the house afterwards with details like 2 sergeants, a couple of investigators asking to set up cameras, and then the cops say, no, we never did go back. I got to get your take. What do you make of all of this?
Well, it is one of the most bizarre cases, not the most bizarre that I've investigated. You summarize it very well. It starts out with some corroborating evidence. You have a 911 call. You have police taking the family seriously. In fact, I think they would still tell you today that most of them felt they were telling the truth. They seem legitimately frightened. But when you start digging into it, they start to have some inconsistencies. They told George Knapp, local Vegas reporter, that they had video, which you said, of course, was never mentioned in the beginning. The footprints, you don't think to take, photos of those. And it starts to kind of unravel. And then all of a sudden the family stops responding. Now, the media has descended. They've found the location. They're, I'm sure, getting bombarded. And it's natural. Maybe you'd want to go into hiding. But at this point, you'd also hope they'd want to just kind of clear the air once and for all. It's very odd because we've looked at it every angle we possibly can, except for maybe doing voice stress analysis. When you played the 911 tape, I was thinking maybe we should do that too.
Well, there's time because we're not getting very far on this, although you have gotten farther than it seems the police have. I'm a little disconcerted with the report that the family said police came a couple days later and did this whole investigation, and the Metro Vegas police have said, no, we didn't. Can you tell me if you've investigated or reported on or witnessed any other incidents of these strange, X-Files-like incidents where people arrive to investigate that apparently don't exist?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would say that we do have pretty convincing evidence that has happened in the past, maybe the 50s and 60s. I think it's really difficult to find such a situation now because you could find this type of story in the tabloids. And then if there was a secret-keeping group, who would honestly believe them and take it as true if they came out and just said their story like they've been doing, and there's no need to cover it up. So I do think that's kind of more in the realm of conspiracy. However, they had photos supposedly, and they released photos of the police being there. That should be easy to verify, but our sources are telling us nothing officially. No one officially went out to follow up. And so if it's not them and they're seeing these SUVs driving around blacked out, it could be other people, media, onlookers, just trying to figure out what's happened. But I would say it's a very unlikely situation that we have a shadow agency there.
But here's the thing. They're playing a game here. They're playing a game here. Because what it looks like, if you have any healthy level of suspicion, what it looks like is they're trying to cover up the fact that this family got silenced and they stopped talking to the media about this, and footage never really got released. And obviously they also were missing 16 minutes of body cam footage, which was just deleted, which I also discussed in that same segment. I'll show you that right here.
My sources are telling me from Metro that they cannot understand this because when they released the body cam video from the October 17th massacre, 2017 massacre, what they do is if there's something that they don't want you to see, they'll blur it out. But there's no reason why they couldn't have blurred out whatever they don't want you to see. Say if there was something in the back of the family's yard that the family didn't want to be seen, the audio should have been running. In this case, everything is blocked out. So we don't know the conversation between the police officer in the backyard and Angel. We don't know what they were looking at.
Angel's the young man.
So
I want to
that's
be
where we have to leave
clear
it at this
for
point.
our audience. He's the young teenager who called 911 and was the primary observer, witness of this, although other members of his family said they saw it too. Why do you suppose then that the Las Vegas Metro Police did that? Redacted 16 full minutes, went to complete silence and black for 16 minutes. And do you think they'll reverse course to just try to put an end to all the speculation?
Well, obviously, it's redacted both on audio and video because there's obviously something they don't want us to see and something to hear. Now, my sources told me that immediately after this incident, a Las Vegas Metro Police Department detective who he works with the gangs or something, he's an IT expert. My sources said he was immediately called in, and the speculation is that something was either deleted or changed in the record system, whether it was a body camera or a dispatch system, we don't know, because he's not even talking to his friends. I got his name, but I'm not going to mention it. So that came from reliable sources within Metro.
I've got 10 seconds left. Is there anything that can convince you that this is true at this point in this investigation?
I don't think I said this last night. I don't believe the family's lying. I believe they're telling the truth. They believe they saw something. As far as what the Metro Police are doing, they have a pattern and practice of cover-ups and lies over the years. So now this is almost 4 weeks. It's over a month now since this thing happened. Now they're starting to put out press releases and stuff, but they haven't put out press releases, giving a verbal statement. I don't trust anything right now. The timeline doesn't fit with these cameras. They put them in on the 19th, and I was told that the only way they knew about it, the undersheriff, was my podcast. And then they were pulled out 2 or 3 days later. Well, if they were concerned for the family's safety, why did they pull them out?
Right.
And
Why
why
pull
did
them
they
out
put
so
them back
quickly?
in now since there's people over at the house?
And yeah, because the speculation is growing and there may be more looky-loos. Makes perfect sense. Doug Papa, thanks so much for being on again. Really appreciate it.
Have a nice night, Ashley.
You too.
And so you see the woman investigating him about what happened with these black vans and what truly happened there. And they're talking about how it doesn't make sense, how 16 minutes of footage is redacted. But here's the thing, if they truly didn't want you to think anything was up, they wouldn't have made that news segment the way they did it with such questionable attitudes. You understand where I'm getting at? So they know that we know that the news are fake by now, or that half of us know. And I don't think they're necessarily trying to hide it. I think they want to slowly start to push this because we're seeing a crazy surge of news surrounding UAPs or UFOs in the last 2 years in mainstream news. It's almost like they want us to think that we are finding out what they are hiding, when in reality, they are telling us.
Nothing was heard from the Kenmore family until now.
Do you believe that these creatures were human?
They was not human.
We asked them to draw what they saw.
To the best of your ability, draw what you recall. Don't look at each other, just focus on your own pad and try from your memory to draw a picture of the creature that you saw. This is what you drew, and describe this. What is this? And what are these?
These are, they look like ears, but they have they look like antenna, like light.
And large eyes?
Large eyes, a lot of teeth.
No nose?
No nose, no.
Describe this if you can.
You know, this is what I saw. The light was beside him.
Yeah.
I've tried to make the skin color, the skin tone I had. One of the legs, they look bent.
I looked back, it looked like a big ass shadow, but it was solid at the same time, like a few shadows, but they were solid at the same time. And it almost looked like they was coming our direction, like they was chasing us, but they was disappearing and reappearing closer.
It was the streak seen across the sky, now seen around the world. This, as our 8 News Now investigators confirm, Metro actually set up cameras at this home where a family called 911 claiming to see aliens in their backyard. And tonight, a fierce debate is underway about the legitimacy of an alleged UFO crash. Good evening, I'm Janice Valdez.
And I'm Brian Loftus. Our 8 News Now investigators reporting about terrified members of a local family who told police they had aliens in their backyard. Chief Investigator George Knapp here to piece it all together.
You know, as with all things UFO, the public debate is ferocious and ongoing. Was it all a hoax? Were we duped? Was it all an evil plot, a cover-up, all of the above? We took another look at the hubbub to separate wheat from chaff. The fireball captured on a police body cam on the night of April 30th was real. The American Meteor Society says witnesses reported seeing it all across the West, from northeastern Utah to Southern California. Another Las Vegas resident sent us a video of the same object recorded on her home camera.
Investigation by Nexstar station KLAS.
As the story of the Las Vegas incident spread across newscasts and social media, one of NASA's planetary defense officers weighed in to say it was likely a small meteor that fell to Earth hundreds of miles away from Las Vegas. Police videos obtained by 8 News Now indicate Metro officers were among the witnesses.
One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious.
The appearance of the meteor seemingly triggered the events that followed. A frightened family called 911 and told police they had 10-foot-tall alien beings in their backyard. Officers responded to the home minutes later, interviewed the witnesses, canvassed the area, and cautiously inspected the backyard to look for intruders. One thing noticed by the officers was a circle in the soil. In conversations with us and in a podcast interview, Angel, the main witness, suggested the circle might have been created when an unknown object landed in the yard. Social media sleuths have since pointed out that the circular image has been viewable via Google Earth for more than a year. The family told us by phone they had seen suspicious vehicles with men in black types checking out their home. Turns out there is substance to that. A retired police officer fessed up on News Nation that he spent days staking out the house to see what, if anything, unfolded. What about those reports that Metro installed a special surveillance camera atop the house, presumably to watch for intruders, human or otherwise, or overzealous media? Turns out that's true as well. Metro confirmed as much in a statement to 8 News Now's David Charnes. The system stayed on the roof for days. What about the Ring camera video with the weird noise? The main witness, Angel, intimated to us the video was recorded by one of his neighbors, and the audio was from the April 30th UFO crash. It wasn't. The security camera video was recorded in mid-April, according to the man who first posted the clip. He doesn't want his name used, but says the recording was from a fireball that passed over his home in the southwestern part of the valley 2 weeks prior to the alleged alien encounter. The family declined to be interviewed by us, but members have spoken elsewhere and stick to their claims of seeing aliens in the backyard. Dozens of people on social media have analyzed and dissected the images with various claims of aliens spotted in the shadows. Police do not believe this was a hoax call, which could be a crime if done intentionally. In the fervid swamp known as UFO world, our coverage of the story was itself seen as a dastardly plot to distract attention away from a prominent whistleblower named David Grush, who stepped forward around the same time. Grush unveiled his explosive on-camera account on News Nation, which is owned by the parent company of KLAS. In spite of the local news story, Grush's story was reported by news media all over the world. Curses foiled again.
All right. So, what do you make of this whistleblower, David Grush?
He first reached out to me about a year ago. We've been in contact ever since. He's the real deal. I mean, he had a distinguished career in the Air Force. Then he went to work for a 3-letter agency you probably haven't heard of, the NGA, which basically tracks everything in space, in the air, in the ocean, under the ocean, on land. They keep tracks of everything. He has the highest security clearances in our government, and in that capacity, he interacted with something like 2,000 SAP, special access programs, and he learned along the way that we're reverse engineering crashed flying saucers, and he's been telling that to Congress under oath behind closed doors. And I think they'll probably bring him back. So it's a pretty intriguing story. A lot like what we've been hearing about out in the Nevada desert for a long time.
Right. Of all the stories you've done over decades and decades, this one has really gone worldwide.
The backyard alien?
Yes.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy how much email we get, you know. We're not done with it. We'll see where it goes.
I was going to say, this is not the last of that story.
No.
All right, George, thanks for that. Now,
here's the most clear example. I want to show you this. This is David Grush. He's a former United States Air Force officer and intelligence official. And there was this huge news segment on News Nation where he gave an extensive interview, and he made a lot of claims and even show paperwork that he's allowed to talk about it. He's titled, he's the whistleblower. sort of like, oh, he's exposing them. But really, they gave him the papers to talk about it. They set limitations and restrictions on what he can talk about. So, for example, he can't show physical evidence, he can't show videos or picture, but he can talk about stuff. And he made a lot of claims. So, for example, he claimed that the US government has operated a multi-decade program where they try to recover and reverse engineer crashed UAPs. Once again, UFOs. It's the same thing. He also said that they had recovered non-human biologics from crash sites, which once again, it's wordplay. Non-human biologics from crash sites, aliens from UFOs is basically what it's saying. He even said that a UAP was recovered by Benito Mussolini's government in 1933, and that it was later obtained by the Vatican in 1945. And he even said that there's even been consequences in contact with these beings and people who have died in order to conceal the existence of these programs. He even said that they have UFOs the size of football fields. And there's been a lot of talk in Congress about this recently. Once again, Congress is more or less just a show for the public. You know, the things that they want you to know, you're gonna know them, you're gonna figure them out in these publicly held meetings. But I think I'm just gonna show you the clips right here.
Mr. Chairman, ranking members and congressmen, thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is an important issue, and I'm grateful for your time. My name is David Charles Grush. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years, both in the U.S. Air Force, both active duty, Air National Guard, and Reserve, at the rank of major, and most recently from 2021 to 2023, at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, at the GS-15 civilian level, which is the military equivalent of a full bird colonel. I was my agency's co-lead in unidentified anomalous phenomena and transmedium object analysis, as well as reporting to the UAP task force, UAPTF, and eventually, once it was established, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO. I became a whistleblower through a PPD-19 urgent concern filing in May 2022 with the Intelligence Community Inspector General. Following concerning reports from multiple esteemed and credentialed current and former military and intelligence community individuals that the U.S. government is operating with secrecy above congressional oversight with regards to UAPs. My testimony is based on information I've been given by individuals with a long-standing track record of legitimacy and service to this country, many of whom also have shared compelling evidence in the form of photography, official documentation, and classified oral testimony to myself and my various colleagues. I have taken every step I can to corroborate this evidence over a period of 4 years while I was with the UAP Task Force and do my due diligence on the individual sharing it. This is because of these steps, I believe strongly in the importance of bringing this information before you. I am driven by a commitment of both to truth and transparency, rooted in our inherent duty to uphold the United States Constitution and protect the American people. I'm asking Congress to hold our government to this standard and thoroughly investigate these claims. But as I stand here under oath now, I am speaking to the facts as I've been told them. In the U.S. Air Force, in my National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, reservist capacity, I was a member of the UAP Task Force from 2019 to 2021. I served at the NRO Operations Center on the Director's briefing staff, which included the coordination of the Presidential Daily Brief and supporting a variety of contingency operations, which I was the Reserve Intelligence Division Chief backup. In 2019, the UAP Task Force Director asked me to identify all special access programs and controlled access programs, also known as SAPs and CAPs, we needed to satisfy our congressionally mandated mission, and we were direct report at the time to the DepSecDef. At the time, due to my extensive executive level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant compartments and in a position of extreme trust, both in my military and civilian capacities. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it. I made the decision, based on the data I collected, to report this information to my superiors and multiple inspectors general, and in effect becoming a whistleblower. As you know, I've suffered retaliation for my decision, but I am hopeful that my actions will ultimately lead to a positive outcome of increased transparency. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
We're going to do something a little bit out of the ordinary here. We're going to give 3 people a chance at an additional 3 minutes. So, Mr. Burchett, do you want to keep going?
Why don't you come back to me, Mr. Chairman? Ms. Luna, if she's on, is she on that list?
Sure.
Chairman, I'd like to submit for the record an article by News Nation, and it follows Mr. Grush's full interview for the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. Grush, why is it that you refer to the phenomenon as non-human intelligence? Why deviate from the basis of extraterrestrial life?
I think the phenomenon is very complex, and I like to leave an open mind analytically to specific origin.
When you say specific origin, are you referring, can you elaborate on that for those that might not?
If it's a traditional extraterrestrial origin or something else that we don't quite understand from either a biological or astrophysics perspective, yeah, I just like to keep an open mind on what it could be, yeah.
Okay, and referring to your News Nation interview, you had referenced specific treaties between governments. Article 3 of the Nuclear Arms Treaty with Russia identifies UAPs. It specifically mentions them. To your knowledge, are there safety measures in place with foreign governments or other superpowers to avoid an escalatory situation in the event that a UAP malevolent event occurs?
Yeah, you're referring to actual public treaty in the UN Register. It's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, the Agreement on Measures to Reduce the Risk of Outbreak of Nuclear War signed in 1971. Unclassified treaty publicly available. And if you cite the George Washington University National Security Archives, you will find the declassified in 2013 specific provisions in the specific red line flash message traffic with the specific codes pursuant to Article 3 and Article, also Situation 2, which is in the previously classified NSA archive. What I would recommend, and I tried to get access, but I got a wall of silence at the White House, was those specific incidents when those message traffic was used. I think some scholarship on that would open the door to a further investigation using those publicly available information.
Thank you. And then my last question with 51 seconds remaining. You mentioned white-collar crimes potentially being taking place in regards to a cover-up. Can you please elaborate?
I have concerns based on the interviews I conducted under my official duties of potential violations of the Federal Acquisition Regulations, the FAR.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I yield the remainder of my time.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Thank you. I will now recognize Ms. Luna for 5 minutes of questioning.
Mr. Elizondo, to your knowledge, can you name the country and around time frame that the first back-engineered UAP program started?
Ma'am, unfortunately, I would not be able to have that conversation in public.
Can anyone on the panel name that?
I cannot.
None of you? Okay. This next question is for Mr. Gallaudet. To your knowledge, have any USOs ever outpaced our submarines?
Yes, ma'am.
At what magnitude?
I don't have the exact speed, but again, a witness came to me, a credible former submarine officer who observed it on sonar data, And this was in the 80s in the North Atlantic during a storm, and it outpaced his submarine by orders of magnitude.
Are you aware of any hotspots that currently exist off our shores in North America?
Not with sufficiently credible data, ma'am.
Okay, we've heard reports of there potentially being hotspots, maybe entry and exit points. Have you heard of any of that?
I have not, ma'am, but my colleague here, Mr. Elizondo, does discuss some USO activity that he's observed in certain DoD databases.
Mr. Elizondo, in regards to these aircraft being piloted by whatever they might be, non-human biologics, would you agree that it's likely that they are being piloted by some mind-body connection?
Ma'am, I think it is safe to presume here that they are being intelligently controlled because some cases seem to anticipate our maneuvers, and in other cases they seem to, I came across an email where the word stalked was used in a very secure email between Navy officers discussing their ships being pursued by a UAP.
In our previous panel, we had Grush, and he had testified to say that some of these were interdimensional beings. Can you speak on that at all?
Ma'am, I'm not qualified, certainly as a scientist or otherwise, to speculate points of origin. I looked at everything from a scientific perspective. So if you look at, for example, instantaneous acceleration, which was one of the observables of the program that I belong to, ATIP, the human body can withstand about 9 G-forces for a short period of time before you suffer negative biological consequences, blackouts and ultimately redouts and even death. Comparison, our best technology, the F-16, which is this older platform, but one of our most highly maneuverable aircraft, manned aircraft, made by General Dynamics, can perform about 17 or 18 G-forces before you start having structural failure, meaning that the airframe begins to disintegrate while you're flying. The vehicles we're talking about are performing in excess of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Gs.
So I guess, would it be safe to infer that they're living craft?
I'm not prepared at this point to state for the record is something alive or not, because even that definition is hard. There was a time in science we thought that life required oxygen, and we now know that's not true. There are anaerobic bacteria that thrive in oxygen environments that lack oxygen. And so also the same with photosynthesis. When I was in college, I was told everything is derived from photosynthesis as a form of energy. In reality, that's not true. There are things that live off of chemosynthesis. So we're constantly having to reevaluate our understanding of what the definition of life is.
Mm-hmm. Do any of you ever come across reports from people that claim to have firsthand experiences with these entities, whatever they might be, or these aircraft, and then as a result, whether or not they're religious, find that these things will automatically disappear? Anyone, and this is open to any of you on the panel. So just real quick, because I'm running out of time. Lou?
Ma'am, I've always been a nuts and bolts kind of guy. When I was at ATIP, I was focusing more on the performance characteristics and less on the potential occupants.
Okay, the reason I ask is because it seems like, just based on our conversations, that we've had people that say that there are good and bad of whatever these things are. And so my concern from a national security perspective is A, that true? B, are you guys hearing the reports of that? And C, I think moving forward in regard to technology, Mr. Gold, if you can answer this real quickly, some of these aircraft, it seems that they are operating off of energy that we don't currently have. But just yes or no, in your opinion, if we were able to obtain that, would that impact humanity for the better or negative?
Would certainly save us some money on funding on Artemis.
Definitely.
And this is a national security issue, that if there is such technology out there, we're not the only country that might have access to it. We don't want to be on the wrong end of technological surprise.
Okay. Thank you guys for your time.
And so you gotta ask yourself, why are they telling us these things? If they truly wanted this to stay hidden, would they give him official papers to go quote unquote whistleblow and expose them on mainstream news? Think about this for a second. Think about the speeches of Reagan. Doesn't this seem odd? And once again, you used to be called a conspiracy theorist for saying this, but nowadays you can just show the article and be like, well, do you believe in the news? Well, there you go. We have alien motherships in space. Intelligence officials are saying we have I mean, whole governments are coming out and claiming we have alien bodies, and intelligence officers are coming out and saying we've had UFOs since the 1930s and we're studying them and reverse engineering them, and people have even died to cover all this up, and we're in contact with these non-biological or non-human biological entities. Like, you gotta ask yourself, why are they showing that to us? Because once again, you gotta understand how this works. They know that some of us are skeptical or against the news. So they'll use the news to still acclimate you to their agenda, because what they really want to tell you is aliens are real. And we can see this in the news. This is slowly and surely being pushed. But they're doing it in a way in which you think you're discovering something secret. You know, in the same way they put a president up there who calls out the fake news. So you think, oh, so he is the good guy. He is okay. I know the news are fake, so I'll follow this guy. While at the same time, they still put him there, right? It's by design. They know that we know that the news are fake by now, and they play on that. So they put politicians up there to say, oh, the news are fake, to gain your trust. Well, at the same time, they are best buddies with the guy who's going to enforce the mark of the beast. We're going to talk about that though. So you just have to wonder, why are they pushing this? Is this actually the case? Do aliens actually exist? Are we actually starting to secretly uncover this? And are there actually whistleblowers who are slowly telling us? Or do they want us to know this and get to know this slowly? It's not just legacy news. Once again, I've talked about CERN earlier. Who is CERN funded by? The Vatican, right? The Vatican has its own observatory where the telescope called Lucifer is. Well, now it's called Lucy, where they look for extraterrestrial life, right? You even have articles. Vatican looks to heaven for signs of alien life. Now, once again, I said I'm not going to make a video about the Vatican, but you just got to ask yourself, why would the church even care or think there is such a thing as alien life? From a biblical perspective, there is no alien life on another planet. So why would they even be so concerned with having these super advanced technological advancements and being right at the forefront of it and to look for alien life? Why would they fund CERN? And we can see the Vatican is coming out. Vatican preparing guidelines for apparitions or other supernatural phenomena. Apparitions are appearances or communication with divine beings such as saints, angels, or Christ himself. So they are preparing to find supernatural things, and they're establishing guidelines. Why? Because they know it's coming. They know it's already here. Because once again, they're telling us, bizarre quote unquote demon particle found inside superconductor could help unlock a holy grail of physics. Now, come on, just because we put the particle at the end of the word, take away particle, bizarre demon found inside a superconductor. They're telling us. They're telling us. And the own scientists of the Vatican are at CERN. We see this in 2012 when they found the Higgs boson particle. They immediately started to collaborate even more and sent their own scientists there. And CERN tells us themselves of secret dimensions. In everyday life, we inhabit a space of 3 dimensions, a vast cupboard with height, width, and depth, well known for centuries. Less obviously, we can consider time as an additional 4th dimension, as Einstein famously revealed. But just as we are becoming more used to the idea of 4 dimensions, some theories have made predictions wilder than even Einstein had imagined. String theory intriguingly suggests that 6 more dimensions exist, but are somehow hidden from our senses. They could be all around us, but curled up to be so tiny that we have never realized their existence. Now, once again, language comes into play. They often deny the existence of extraterrestrial beings. For example, here I'll show you an interview where, you know, the obviously the unbiased reporter is trying to press the guy and asking about it.
I think it's incredibly important to listen to the specific words that Grush uses. You know, Grush never said extraterrestrial or alien. He said interdimensional.
But one member used the term that what they were exploring here were, her phrase, interdimensional beings. Is that something that we're dealing with here potentially?
I mean, I think it's easy to be disappointed when you don't get all the information that you want, which I understand. I would have loved to receive much more information, but I think that it's reasonable to say that everyone that was in the room received probably new information. I certainly did, and think it's interesting. Additional information to continue the investigation and ask more questions. So definitely have more questions than less questions.
Does that term mean anything to you?
I'm not going to get into any term.
And so they're like, oh, they're not extraterrestrials, they're interdimensional beings. But what does it really mean? And what does this have to do with the Vatican? Well, if you know anything about the Vatican, once again, I'm not going to go too deep into this. But there's a lot of occultic symbolism surrounding the Vatican. And even some statements, for example, Cardinal Giovanni Laggiolo, who was a priest at the Vatican, he said scientific truths could, quote unquote, correct some of our opinions about scripture and faith. He said nothing in science could contradict the Holy Scriptures, only interpretations, because both were rooted in God. That's just an interesting statement. But if you know anything about the Pope, I mean, he famously said that Pope Francis stated that every religion is a way to arrive at God. And he compared different religions as just different languages to express the divine. Now, once again, I don't need to convince you right here, right now, but if we assume that all these governing bodies are truly of the enemy, then the Vatican is as well. Because think about it, what was in the time of Christ? Who killed Christ? The religious people. But not only just the religious people, those looked at as the most religious, the officially or publicly recognized religious body in of itself. So that would be the same as we have nowadays with the Vatican. So what makes you think that it's not going to be exactly the same during the end of times? That mainstream religion is going to be the one opposing Christ, just as they were. Why would the Pope say every religion is a way to arrive at God? This is so unbiblical. I can't even begin to talk about how unbiblical that actually is. To compare multiple religions to different pathways to get to God. It's like, take that into consideration with all the symbolism, with the fact that they are the ones funding CERN, and you gotta ask yourself, do they truly worship the real and true God revealed in Christ? Or do they worship something else? And that's why there's all this symbolism going on, and they want to open portals. You just gotta ask yourself. Because once again, the symbolism is apparent. And then we see at the VMAs, once again, this is predictive programming. This is openly telling us what's going to happen. We see Sabrina Carpenter kissing an alien, and then you have this portal, and aliens are coming through, and it's the same thing. I've talked about it earlier. In the Olympics ceremony, you see the same thing here. You have a portal, and then you have beings coming through it, as well as these gray ones, and then you have a singer there singing the hymn of Apollo. Once again, remember Apollo, Apollyon, the god of destroyer, Shiva, the god of the destroyer, stationed at CERN. These gray things coming through portals. Why are they having these ceremonies? Like, is this all just an accident, or are they actually showing us and telling us, right? Because it's undeniable. They are slowly but surely getting us used to quote unquote alien talk. And now you gotta ask yourself, well, why is this the case? And this is where we get into the theories. So before I'm going to get into possible theories here in a second, I want to quickly bring back up the overview just so you guys have an understanding of where what I'm talking about is happening in the timeline. So we are still in the middle. Once again, this is not the beginning of tribulation. This is the middle of tribulation after the bottomless pit gets opened. And now you've heard me talk about all of this UFO and alien stuff, and surely you think that I want you to think that aliens are real and that I'm convinced that aliens are real. Well, as someone who follows the Bible, aliens do not exist. If I was a pure rationalist, yes, I would say that out there in the universe is probably extraterrestrial life. But since I follow Christ and I believe in God, I believe in creation, I believe in the Bible, I do not believe in aliens. And so this leaves us with two options. Either this is going to be one of the biggest hoaxes we've ever seen, and this is all slow build up and acclamation for the great deception to come, or these are actually fallen angels. And now I'm going to go over possible theories with you. Once again, I'm not here to convince you of a single thing which is going to happen. I'm just going to lay out all the possible theories. And also quickly want to mention scripture here, because once again, our basis of why we look at things or why we look into things with a certain view shouldn't be Project Bluebeam or what Serge Manas writes in his book, but the Bible, Revelation in of itself. And so I quickly just want to read the main line with you. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 2 to 11. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. And on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon or Apollo. Now, once again, I want you to pay attention to verse number 10. We see that these beings which come out of the bottomless pit, we see that they will torment those who are not of God for 5 months, and that their head is Satan, or well, the angel of the bottomless pit, God of destruction. This is Satan. So these are most likely fallen angels. Now, it isn't entirely clear if there may be some type of different creature, but most likely these are just fallen entities, fallen beings with powers. And it is not God that sends them to torment us, it is God which allows Satan to send them to torment us. Because the deceiver, the father of lies, the enemy, doesn't just merely want to deceive you, he also wants to torment you. The tormentor and the deceiver are one and the same. So these beings are going to torment those who are not with God for 5 months. And God is going to use that in order to bring people into repentance. After which, if they continue to refuse to repent, you will have the two witnesses that will come, they will prophesy, and the witnesses will be killed as well by the beast. And it is a little bit unclear from Revelation what exactly happens for the people to worship the beast. Once again, we have scriptures alluding to this beast which rises up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. It is not entirely clear what this is, and to me, there seems to be sort of a gap between what necessarily or has to happen after these beings come out of the bottomless pit and to the point where people will worship the beast and receive the mark. Once again, if you don't know yet what the mark is, we're going to get into that. But first of all, I want to give you basically all the possible theories, taking into consideration all the news that's recently been coming out. So, the first possible theory is that CERN is actually the bottomless pit. They're going to open that pit, and these fallen beings will reveal themselves. They will torment us, and after which they will do great wonders and signs. Now, you might think, well, okay, but how am I going to follow great wonders and signs of the very entity or thing which deceived me to begin with and tormented me? Spiritual warfare, you have the same thing. You have the enemy posing as what is good, as what feels good, as the temptation, when in reality he's the tormentor, right? It's illusion. A temptation is illusionary. That's what a deception is, or a fake wonder. And so they don't have to be dressed the same. They could look different, but ultimately it's going to be of the same satanic kingdom. So after they will torment us, well, not me because I'm of God, and hopefully you as well, but that after that they will perform great signs and wonders, and they will deceive the people. And then we have this stage between where they will show signs and wonders after the torment and the witnesses which are being killed. to us worshiping them. And here is where these theories take place, because a lot of things could be happening there. So, for example, you could have the government truly staging this alien invasion using advanced technology, and then these fallen angels will quote unquote come to our rescue and take the place of the savior, and then they will overcome that enemy. Hence, the beast is wounded, and people will say, who can make war against the beast? After which we will then worship these fallen angels and in turn Satan, and we will bow down to totalitarianism, which has been enforced through the unifying of all the nations because of this perceived common enemy. Again, remember the speech of Reagan. Now, once again, during that time, the Antichrist is going to be revealed. And the Antichrist could be a literal being, such as Satan himself pretending to be good, coming here as man, and desiring and wanting our worship, which he will also get by those people who are not of God. Once again, what is the highest sin, or what caused Lucifer to fall out of heaven? It was pride. It was wanting to be like God. It was wanting that worship which God receives. Now, when we talk about the Antichrist, it is often called the man of lawlessness, and he's often called a man. But there's also a spiritual component to this, possibly, which is that Antichrist is not just the external manifestation or personification of that which is evil, but it could also be internally within man. The Antichrist spirit, you can call it flesh, you can call it demonic possession, you could call it that in people, which is the ego, the worship of the ego, as a matter of fact, which will lead you to hedonism, and it will lead you to attempt to always gratify your immediate and narrow focused self with pleasures and forsaking the later for that. That is sort of what the worship of the ego or of pleasure or flesh leads you into, hedonistic lifestyle. So this Antichrist could also be categorized as a spirit which dwells in people, dwells in rulers, and infects people, because many people can be of the Antichrist and carry that spirit with them. Then we also see the beast coming out of the sea. Now, there are people who say this is Leviathan, which is a creature mentioned in the Old Testament, a gigantic sea creature. But this beast with the 10 heads, who is going to speak blasphemies, could also represent governing bodies. So, for example, you could have the music industry and politics and the school system. On the blasphemies they speak could be, for example, you could also have science as a governing head, speaking blasphemies in the sense of, oh, dinosaurs exist, but giants do not, and we're just a result of random evolution, which could be considered a blasphemy. Or you could have another head, such as the music industry, propagating textbook deadly sin within every mainstream song, which is also blasphemy. Or you could have politicians pushing abortion, blasphemy. You understand there's different ways in which we can interpret these scriptures. So don't be set on one way, but be open to everything, so that whichever thing happens, you're going to prepare and you're going to know it. Because ultimately, this is the reason we have the book of Revelation. The point of the book of Revelation is for us to know if we are in these times and to not be deceived. It is our shield for the deception. Once again, I don't think I'm going to have to read all of the individual scriptures again. I'm just going to show them to you on the screen. If you need to pause them and read them, that cannot harm you. But once again, there's going to be such a great deception that even those who are elect might fall. And this is why we have the book of Revelation, so that we will not be deceived by what our eyes and ears are going to see and hear. This is the reason we have it. And so even though a lot of modern churches are like, oh, we've always said we are in the end times and you shouldn't be a conspiracy theorist, etc., we have this book for a reason. And modern churches don't want to look into it. They don't want to, at the very least, think or be open-minded to the fact that maybe we are in these prophetic times which it's talking about. And this is very dangerous. Because it's at the same time it's a fair criticism though. How do you truly know we are in the end times? How do you know we're not just trying to piece puzzles together when we're not even at the proper time yet? Because if we look in history, people have always thought we were in the end of times. But here's the thing. I'm going to show you after this clear signs that signal the start of tribulation or the end times, so that you will know 100% when the end times begin without a shadow of doubt. And then at that point, you can look at what's around you and then put the puzzle pieces together. But let me just tell you, if we were in the end times, people such as me would be talking about it. And it's also very likely that if we were in the end times, it will be like when Christ came, that the main governing body of religion is actually going to oppose Christ and lead people astray. Now, another possibility is that they could open CERN. They will actually torment us, and after that, they will be sort of used to stage this attack. After which the government is going to use advanced technology and stage a play in the heavens where they will defend us from the enemy. And then we are just going to worship the government, and the beast in that reference is the government. The Antichrist will be a leader who will be the manifested leader who is going to be the head of us all coming together once again because of this common perceived enemy. So it is very likely that Satan's own kingdom will pretend to attack us so that then Satan's kingdom in of itself can come and pretend to save us. We have seen this in the few last years, certain events that have happened on the world, which I'm not going to mention by word right now, but you probably know what I'm talking about, where somebody creates a problem so that they can then come with a solution. This is also business. Create the problem, you can sell the solution. Because the Antichrist, again, will be in accordance with how Satan works. And we see in a lot of modern spirituality that Satan likes to propose a counterfeit Satan, right? You have in Islam, you have in Judaism, you have in modern spirituality. In some of it, you have an enemy, you have a Satan. When, as a matter of fact, from a biblical perspective, these are all deceptions. It is Satan posing as the goodness, because this is also what it is. We see once again Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So he will pretend to be good. When these beings come, you got to understand they're not going to look evil with a scepter in their hands and horns on their heads. They're going to be like the floating, empathetic, meditating guru creatures or whatever. Because here's the thing, if you do not have the Spirit of God, you're going to fall for empathy, for anything that appears good, even if it pushes accepting something which is actually immoral. Because the Spirit of God is that which helps you differentiate between compassion and truth. The modern world and modern spirituality confuses empathy and compassion as a moral absolute. And because we become overly accepting and overly infantilized in our way of looking at the truth, we accept even the very things which destroy us. And they might look all good and nice and empathetic and lovely and harmless, but they really aren't. There's a difference between being harmless and being naive. That's a thing. I think that's a good way of saying it. Now, there's also a possibility that CERN will not literally bring physical entities here, but this is merely going to be a spiritual outpour, which is going to increase the darkness within people. But once again, if that were the bottomless pit, we can't forget we would be tormented for 5 months. And it also says that men shall seek death. So I don't think this is merely a demonic affliction, although demonic afflictions can literally make you suicidal. That's a demonic spirit in of itself. So once again, it is technically possible that this is alluding to spiritual entities that will come and go into the vessels of people. And then they might stage a sort of fake war and once again usher in a one world government. I also quickly want to show you another scripture here in that same time frame. This is Revelation 12. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. Once again, referencing the beast. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as possible. So, if we look at this fourth verse, it seems like a third part of the stars of heaven is going to be cast on earth. Now, what are these stars? These are fallen angels. Once again, if you look at the biblical story, a third of the angels are fallen. We also see in Revelation 12, chapter 9, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Now, obviously, we know Satan is already on the earth, but as far as we can tell, there's no literal beings. As in the days of Noah, you remember these beings had intercourse with women. And we have not yet seen these beings. At least we don't know about them. And once again, I have to remind you, in the coming of the Son of Man, it's going to be like in the days of Noah. And this might indicate that there will be these physical beings. And once again, you see a third of hell, or a third of the fallen angels or stars being cast out into the earth, because I'm pretty sure this is a metaphor for the angels, right? You also see this in the modern world. What do you call a celebrity? An idol, a star, right? So I just want to make you aware of this. Once again, you could interpret this as more physical beings coming. And how would they come? Through the bottomless pit. Because the fallen angels, right now, they're not in heaven. Either they're on earth, I'm talking about the physical manifestation, not their spirits, the spirits of giants. They're either on earth or they're in the bottomless pit, aka in hell. And so, if they're not on earth right now, which it most likely seems like they aren't, they're going to be in the bottomless pit. And then these will the ones who will deceive us. And we don't exactly know how this advanced technology is going to play into that, or maybe if these quote unquote aliens are actually the fallen angels already, and they're already here, because we don't know what has truly happened in CERN the last 15 years. It's really hard to tell. Now, one more possibility is, and this is one which I personally find to be unlikely, is that this whole beast system, or this whole beast, is just talking about the system in of itself. So once again, these signs and wonders could just be, for example, science leading you astray, the deceptions of sexual allure and hedonism, and just the general reasons why people degenerate into hedonism and forsake God, right? This, because we see this general, we see the general progression into hedonism, away from traditional values and the belief in God. And this is to a degree because of deceptions, right? To a big degree, because that's what Satan does. And so some people say this is just the continuation of us walking into hedonism, into less self-sufficiency and more dependency on governments, because we're incapable and unwilling to bear responsibility and stand up for ourselves, which inevitably leaves you to enslavement. You're either a slave of God, or you're a slave of desires and Satan and something else. And so naturally what ends up happening is, if you degenerate as a society, you will walk into totalitarianism. This is inevitable. We already see this, right? We own less and less. We're all chasing money, status, and what we see on social media. Family structures are breaking apart, and our children are being indoctrinated by devices, and eventually we're going to get chipped. Once again, I'm going to get to that. Mark of the beast. We don't know if it's a chip, but that's why we're going to talk about it. We're going to see what could be happening. And obviously, it's also a possibility that everything which I've talked about is wrong. And once again, if we were in the end times, if we're about to enter these 7 prophetic years, which the Bible talks about, then the things which I talked about are most likely going to happen. This is the most likely scenario. This is the best way I could conceive of putting these puzzle pieces together, looking at the bigger picture and all the information we have. But now you might say, well, how do we know if we are in the end times? Because after all, it is a very true statement. That they've always said that. They've always looked for these signs. They've always wondered, are we in the end times? And this is why later in this video, we're going to talk about the first 4 things which are happening, so that you can know for sure the tribulation has started and we are truly in the end times. Because once you can establish the times we're in, then you can look at the puzzle pieces. Now, for me personally, I've already established what times we're in, but I'm going to show you why I believe what I believe. And once again, I'm not here to convince you. I'm just here to show you all the possibilities. You draw your own conclusions. And most importantly, read the book of Revelation for yourself. Don't rely on a YouTube video. If the scriptures you see today are more scriptures than you knew before about Revelation, you have a problem, and your problem is you're not reading enough. You're listening a lot, which is good, but you're not reading enough. You need to read, because the word of God is going to be your shield. The same way the Spirit can come through you, through the word of God, and transform you, the same way you need to read Revelation to get revelation. That's the whole point of it. It's a spiritual book, because the words, they have power and meaning. So don't rely on YouTube videos. Once again, if you learn more scriptures today than you did from remembering reading that chapter, you need to read more, okay? Then start tomorrow. Read 1 chapter every day. It's 10, 15 minutes.